A mile in my shoes. Have you ever thought that we can learn somebody or know everything about somebody by walking like 2 inches in somebody else's shoes? We've been talking about perception for the last 2 weeks. This week we'll continue on with the title of my talk is, So You Think You Know Me. How many times in our life have we looked at somebody in 10, 15 seconds or 5 or 10 minutes or half a day and we think we know them? And then we make judgments on what we think we know about them in a very short period of time, and then we act upon those judgments as if they are truth. As if they are actual fact. Because we met somebody, whether they're 20, 30, 40, 60, or 80, or 100 years old. And we just see them for just a few minutes, and we assess them, the way they're dressed, the way their hair looks, whether they have teeth or not, whatever it is. And we think we know them. So you think you know me. What I've learned over and over and over in this business of spiritual seeking, of trying to discover and awaken to more of who and what we are inside of us, is that that is one of the biggest mistakes and dysfunctions that we practice regularly as human beings. Go downtown. When you're walking along, how many assessments and judgments do you make of everybody that passes you? So you think you know me. What I've learned is when we really get to know somebody, and what I've always said, the only way you really get to know somebody is you got to spend about a year or 2 living with them, and still you don't really know them. And until you do that, we don't really understand another human being, what makes them tick. So perception, as I've been saying each week, perception is the sum total of every thought, belief, experience, emotion, feeling that we've ever gone through in our life. And we gather it all up inside, we pile it and compile it and compound it into our brain, into our subconscious mind, and that thing is what allows us to see each other however it is that all of those perceptions work for us. So it was a great line in there, and without looking it up, you get it exactly right of what Kate read out of Michael Beckwith's book, that monk, the enlightened monk, was speaking about. What our purpose and perception here of being in life is, can we see the divine holiness in all those that we come in contact with? Because that's who we are. But boy, do we get lost in that stuff. Do we get lost in our hurts and pains and wounds and all that sort of stuff that distorts or prevents or blocks our ability to see the divinity within every human being? So do we really see each other for what we really are, or do we just see what we want to see? The image distorted by our own personal lenses. What is reality but a concept unique to each of us? Can anything be classed as real when our perceptions differ greatly on so many things? On so many things. Just because we see someone or something a particular way does not make it so. We can be so insistent sometimes that our way of seeing someone or something is more right than someone else's way. Have you ever been on that one? Man, we're locked into showing that the way we see something, it's the only way to see it. Do you know there's probably 5 other million ways to see any given situation? Keep an open mind at all times, and remember that another's point of view is always valuable to that person. I always used to class myself as someone who was realistic. Me. Let me see, I'll go to Canada and start a church. That was realistic. But after contemplating this further, I realized that the term realistic means something very differently entirely to every human being on earth. Our belief structure determines our perceptions of others, which then ultimately determines how each of us responds to any given event. Going by that sequence, you can see that there is another place to start. You can choose to examine your beliefs and then choose to change them. That's why I say that everything begins with a choice. Every perception that we have, we are at choice for whether we really buy into it and we want to believe that it's absolutely 100% right. Or we can go, well, maybe there's a different way to see any given situation. Any given situation. And I put this quote up about in January, and it really should be one that we read every week until we get it so ingrained in our thought process and how we go about our daily life before we take it down. And it's around the law of mental equivalence. As I've been saying, there are there's about 3, 4, 5 huge spiritual laws that apply to every human being on earth. The law of cause and effect. What I put out comes back to me. The law of circulation. What I give comes back to me. What I give out into the universe, whether it's love, kindness, hate, resentment, comes back to me. The law of divine order, meaning you're where you always need to be at any given moment. And the law of mental equivalence, meaning the sum total, if this was the sum total of all my thoughts, feelings, and emotions that were inside of me, this is how I perceive the world from this sum total. That's what the law of mental equivalence is. And the outside world does not determine our inside world. It is our internal perception that determines our external perception. And how I simply state that and give you the example of is when you leave here, go sit down, go walk along Dallas Road. One of the most beautiful places on earth. And maybe you've had some worries, some fears, some hurts, pains come up. And find one of the benches to sit on. And I want you to look there across the beautiful mountains on the other side of on that little lake there, a little body of water that covers 2/3 of our earth. And look across there and sit there for a while and see if it doesn't make all that stuff inside of you go away. It doesn't, does it? Otherwise we'd be living in the most healed community on earth. But it doesn't work that way, does it? It's this thing in here that can take heaven and turn it to hell, and can take hell and turn it to heaven. This thing right here. And it's not even that big. The law of mental equivalence reads like this. The law of mental equivalence works on a simple but powerful belief. If we see the people of the world as beautiful, chances are we see ourselves as beautiful. If we assume that most people of the world are mean-spirited, critical, judgmental, and manipulative, chances are we may be mean-spirited, critical, judgmental, and manipulative. The difference here is someone that is on their spiritual path, this is the most important part of the whole quote, someone that is on their spiritual path will own their perception and want to work on their perception. While someone that is not will do nothing about their perception other than believe it is true and accurate. This, as I said then, and it's still true, is the most challenging part of counseling, working with people, teaching, speaking, preaching. That part right there. Someone that is on their spiritual path will own their perception. That means if we're seeing someone as mean-spirited, critical, judgmental, manipulative, we won't go about, hey, do you see him that way too? We'll look at, oh, what do I need to do to heal within myself so that regardless of how they have ever been, I can still see their beauty. But here's where the confusion continuously gets in. If a person has harmed you in some way, verbally, emotionally, physically, you can still see them as beautiful, but you don't need to be in an intimate relationship with them. That's where we get confused. See, I can love somebody on the other side of the world that has just killed the last 10 people. But that doesn't mean that I want them to come and share a bedroom with my 15-month-old baby. Because I can see past the behaviors, past the actions, into the truth of who they are. And at the core of every one of us in this room, in this community, in this country, and in this world is the divine part of God. And that's what we are here to awaken to first, not the divinity in others, but to the divinity within. And we're continuously looking at what is the perception that warps us or prevents us from seeing and embracing and embodying the divinity within. What is it that holds us back? And part of it is our perception of self. If we really had to stand in front of a mirror and really write, like we had a, what's those